Is rounding your spine bad for you? Well, here's a statement that has been thrown around in the gym or the training community, always talking about the fact that rounding the spine may be potentially dangerous and incorrect for certain movements. Well, in today's YouTube episode, we delve into understanding the rounding of the spine. Is that necessarily bad? And if so, what function does rounding of the spine do for you and your training? To understand the function of the spine, I think it's very important that we look at the structure of the spine itself. Now, the spine is shaped like an S. And if I'm standing from the side, you can see that the upper part of my spine really is prone to flexion, whereas the lower part of my spine, the lumbar spine is called, is prone to extension. If I get excessive flexion at the top and excessive extension at the lower spine, this is where things can start to go south. Probably that's not the best. Now, if you can imagine myself in the gym doing a typical upper back movement, let's say I'm doing a seated row. Within a seated row itself, if my upper back is overly flexed, I'm not able to pull the weights or the load far back enough because it's restricted. As a result of that, I cannot achieve a full range of movement in my activity. So my mid-back muscles are not contracted effectively. Now, this is one of the downsides of being overly flexed with the spine. And this is exactly why that statement, you shouldn't be rounding your back, you shouldn't be flexing your upper back, comes about. Because an excessive flexion prevents you from achieving a full range of movement. It also prevents you from activating the right muscle groups that you are aiming to. So predominantly your mid-back, your lower back, your trap 3, and these are the regions that you're meant to activate in your upper back when you're rowing. Flexion of the spine, though, also extends to your lower spine. Now, when you're doing a deadlift, essentially you don't want to round your lower spine, right? So they tell you to keep a normal arch. And the normal arch is because the lower spine is meant to extend. You're meant to keep that normal arch as you deadlift because that keeps the back tight. Any rounding of the lower back is going to put too much shear pressure and stress on the lumbar spine itself, and this is what could potentially cause a slip disc or an injury. Now, in today's episode, we want to kind of look at why is it necessary then to round the back. I'm going to talk about 3 different movements that you can use to teach you how to increase your strength in a flexed position. Now, remember, what I spoke about earlier with regards to deadlifts is the fact that you need to extend your back or keep your back with a normal lower arch. If you are rounded in your lower back, that could be potentially dangerous. However, rounding of the spine itself is actually a biomechanical function of how the spine is created. It is meant to flex, it is meant to round. The goal is to be able to do it safely and build up the strength in that particular movement of flexion. When you have built up sufficient strength in flexion, that will carry over into maintaining that optimal posture of the spine while doing upper and lower back movements. So let's delve into the 3 movements for teaching you how to flex your spine properly and to teach you to build strength in that particular range. The first spinal flexion activity is using a Swiss ball. Now, if you're a smaller individual, opt for a Swiss ball that is 55 or 65 centimeters in diameter, and if you're a larger individual, it can go up to 85 centimeters. Hug the ball and allow your body to follow the curvature of the ball. So hug the ball as tight as you can, very much like a bear hug. So your spine is actually flexed at the top, and then slowly move around in a circular movement, rotating your spine. Now, in this example, you see me doing this particular movement in a clockwise as well as an anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so that's extremely important. You've got to expose your body to both clockwise and anti-clockwise directions. However, the key is doing it extremely slow. So you're in control of that flex, and even as you lean back and you extend your spine, you are also in control while you do that. You can perform the movements all in a clockwise direction first before performing all in an anti-clockwise direction, or you can alternate it, meaning you can do a clockwise and then an anti-clockwise movement. The second exercise that I'm performing here is actually a back stretch. It's a simple back stretch
on a deficit. Now I'm using a weight or a load to kind of drag me down. The weight or the load has to be light so that I can control this particular movement. Again, it's a very slow movement, and in this instance, I'm using a kettlebell. Now, feel free to use a barbell or a dumbbell if you wanted to. I stand on a platform, creating a deficit, and I start by rounding my spine. So you can watch my chin tuck in, and I slowly round myself into a ball as I allow the weight to drag me down. I'm not using any of my legs in here. My legs are kept straight as it is, and I really want to focus on my spine. So I start to round my spine, and as I go down, my lower spine, my lumbar spine, starts to round as well. Be careful as you do this. If you have a back injury, you've injured yourself before, you've got a slip disc, be careful of this movement. You have to have a certain amount of strength before you execute this movement. Now, as you go all the way down, go down to a maximal degree, and then slowly reverse the movement and come up, working from your lumbar spine onwards, so extending your lumbar spine all the way up towards your neck, your cervical spine. All right, so this movement is a very simple movement and yet effective movement in teaching you how to flex your spine under load and building strength within that movement itself. The last exercise that I'll be introducing is a variation of a seated stretched row. Now, if you've seen me do a stretched row before, typically I would stretch and I would row it. But in this particular exercise, there is no rowing involved. It really is just rounding the spine as I extend my body forward and slowly extending my spine as I go backwards. So again, it is an exercise that is focused on building strength while I round my back, allowing my back to completely stretch forward, round my upper spine, and slowly bring it back into its position. All right, my legs in this particular exercise is taken out of the equation because I'm sitting down. I don't want my legs to come into play. So I really want to focus on just the rounding of the spine itself.
So there you go. Understand that a statement such as "you shouldn't be rounding your spine" is such a blanket statement. The anatomy and the physiology of the spine means that it should be rounded. However, in doing so, learn to build strength in a position that you may not feel the spine is particularly strong at. I hope you've taken away these 3 movements that you can utilize in your own time to help better the range of movement of your spine, the flexion of your spine, and the strength of your spine as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you in our next YouTube video. Do you know the most frustrating thing about fitness? It's when you're diving head in, giving it all you have, but are not achieving the same amazing results that your friend is. The worst part about that? They're doing exactly the same thing that you are. Now, I've been there and I've done that, and I've made a whole ton of mistakes in doing so. You will not have to go through the same route. In this channel, I will be covering training, nutrition, application, giving you the what to do's, what not to do's, and debunking the bro science and false hype. Here is where you accelerate your results. This paired with the learning platform I've just launched, learnasp.com, will help you understand your body better and tailor the application to yourself. Rediscover fitness, science-driven, easily relatable, and highly applicable.